Hey everyone, this is Johnster Truck, and you probably know me from my TikToks or my YouTube channel. I'm sitting down today with audiobook recorder, longtime actor, career Hollywood man, Johnathan McClain, and we are going to be talking about the nature of working in Hollywood in film in the age of streaming services. Jonathan, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into it?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Jonathan McClain. Gosh, yeah, what Johnster just said. I've spent the last 30 years in the entertainment industry. I started off doing theater in Chicago. I moved to doing theater off Broadway and regional and stuff in New York. Then I got lucky to get on a couple of TV shows, so I came out to LA, which is where I live now, and I did some TV. I was briefly the lead on a TV series that no one really watched for a couple of years, but that was fun for a while in the 2010s. And then I started expanding out my horizons in terms of what it is I do creatively. Wrote a couple of things that got made, fortunately. Wrote a movie that got made, sold a couple TV shows. So began writing more as sort of my central focus. And then attendant to that, I fell into narrating audiobooks. Doing other voice work generally is something, I've always done, auditioned for commercials, voiceovers. I did a Super Bowl voiceover a few years back and stuff like that. But the audiobook thing fell into my lap. And now, and it fell in my lap with some Jack Reacher books. So like the first three books I ever narrated were Jack Reacher books, which sort of unbeknownst meant that people paid attention to me as a narrator because the books are so popular, and that got more work coming my way. And now, gosh, I guess 12 years on, 13 years on, I've narrated almost 300. Um, and then that led to the opportunity for me to write a novel series, which I did. So I have a novel series that's currently in the process of being written. Over the next number of years, I will produce 5 books in that series. And yeah, and we met by virtue of me seeing you on TikTok, which is my great obsession. And I saw that you were also, and I loved your work in your channel. I saw your books. That's true, I did. No, I really did. And then I saw your books, and I saw in that you were mentioning that they were available, and the trilogy was completed, and it's sci-fi, and I narrate a lot of sci-fi. I'm actually going to a convention shortly to speak as like a fantasy convention, sci-fi convention, and saw that people were asking the question, "Do you have audiobooks for these?" And I think you were responding with like, maybe not yet, I don't know. And so I just threw and I don't have like it's not my account. It's like it's a dummy account. It's a shadow account that I just keep to watch videos. So I was like, no, this guy's never gonna like respond to my direct message. He's not gonna respond to my DM. But I pinged you and said, hey, I want to narrate your audiobooks, I think. And it's funny because I did that based purely on the fact that your storytelling as a storyteller, the narratives that you weave and the way you communicate the things that you want to communicate, even in short form, were so compelling and drew me in so much that I just had an instinct that like, oh, this guy knows how to write. He knows how to tell a story. And we got lucky because you do. And the books came. You were like, great. You took me up on my insane out of the blue offer, and so we've actually now recorded one of them, and I'm so happy. It's one of the best decisions ever made to reach out because it was one of the best times I've ever had doing a thing.
I am so excited about it. And full disclosure for the audience, like Jonathan and I are friends. We've been working together for a few months now, and like um I was this close to not responding to his message because that I'm a big Netflix guy and you should give me your thing for free is like indie authors get that every 15 minutes. And I hadn't gotten one of those that week yet. So I was like, all right, let's message this guy. And the first thing my wife says to me is, oh, this is that scam again. No, actually, we talked on Zoom. It's him. It's like it's that guy. Um, but yeah, it's been just really serendipitous, right? Really serendipitous meeting. And I guess that gets me to my first question for you is what was it like for you going from dude that's into films, dude that's into writing, dude that's into stories into making them not just as a hobby, but professionally? Like, what did that feel like getting into the industry big time for the first time?
It's a good question. I don't, I think there are probably people who have sort of lightning strike moments where they can point to, like, this was the thing that changed my trajectory. This was the thing
Mhm.
that changed my career. I have a handful of, I have a couple of like super proper A-list, everybody on the planet knows them friends. And then a bunch of, you know, highly respected, very successful friends. Um, and I think to each of those people, I could point a finger and say, this is the thing that changed everything for them, right?
Mhm.
My thing is a little more conventional in sort of the maybe fortunate to be working actor, working professional class, which is my first sort of, I can point to the benchmarks, but nothing ever really felt like, oh, now I'm here and I can, and this is what it feels like to be. It's just sort of a slow tr- trotting, plodding, trudging march in the direction of, oh wow, look at the last 3 decades, and I've look at what I've done.
Mhm.
I wrote a one-person show when I was like 21 that I did in Chicago because I was living there, and it got a lot of heat. And then I moved to New York on the back of that. And then I remember but I do remember like when I was first able to quit my day job. I was my temp job. I got a play at Lincoln Center,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, I'm making now enough money to maybe sort of pay my rent in New York.
Which has got
And
to
then
be wild. That's just got to be such a wild feeling of like, I acted this paycheck into existence.
it's crazy. That particular moment in my life was deeply meaningful because it happened for me late. I was 29 before I was able to quit, like going to a gig every day, like waiting
Hmm.
tables or going to an office job or whatever. And I got this gig. And the coolest thing about it was, and I turned 30 while I was doing it.
Hmm.
And the coolest thing about it was at Lincoln Center. So 9 years to the day, because my birthday's in the summer, um, 9 years to the day of my birthday, before I had seen a play called 6 Degrees of Separation at Lincoln Center with Courtney B. Vance and Stockard Channing. And that was my 21st birthday present
Hmm.
that I got flown out to go see that. And I waited by the stage door to meet Courtney B. Vance afterwards because I was a big fan, and that was cool. And we walked for like a block, and he talked to me, and he was like, "Well, good luck to you." 9 years to that day later, on my birthday, I'm coming out of that same stage door, having just like worked at that theater where, I mean, that was like a really
That's
important
a
moment,
cool moment.
you know,
And it
that
makes
felt,
you wonder, like, how many of you were in the audience thinking, "Oh, I went to that Jonathan McClain show," and 10 years from that moment, to walk and say it like that inspired me. That was something special for me, and now I'm stepping into that world. I mean, it's impossible to know, but that has to be just a phenomenal sense of becoming, of like, oh, this is it. This is me making it, or at least
I,
moving in that direction.
100%, 100%. I mean, it felt like super special. And then I guess, look, getting on my first TV show and getting that first like TV like paycheck, I was, oh, this is very different. And so that felt, not insubstantial. But then, that series I mentioned that I was the lead on, you know, you can find pictures of me out on the internet or talking to Entertainment Tonight, and doing red carpets and rope lines and stuff. And my face was on billboards all over LA and New York. Went to the premiere in the car, drove down Sunset Boulevard past a billboard that had my face on it. Um, that ended, and I didn't work for 2 years. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And so in this kind of iteration of working actor, working professional, entertainment professional, I don't know if there is that moment that lands, and I feel like I've maybe drifted from your initial question, but if there's sort of, my interpretation of it is there kind of a time when you can go like, what is it? This was what it feels like, or this is what it felt like to become a working professional. I still feel every single time I finish anything like am I ever, is it ever going to happen again? I'm having a pretty good year this year with some things that are working out. And I'm like, okay, well, now, the danger that I run into is that I don't do as good a job as maybe I could of staying in the moment. And so I'm like, all right,
Mhm.
well, 2025 is cool, but that's half over. So
Yeah.
time's a ticking,
That mortgage payment's coming up next month too.
every month they want it. They want it like every month.
So when you got in, Hollywood was, I guess to say it's old Hollywood is like the wrong way to say it, but you got into the industry before it was dominated by streaming platforms. What have you noticed change from the actor side, from the writer's side, now that the streaming services seem to have so much more power than they did when they did? I mean, they didn't exist at all 15 years ago. So what's that change from then to now?
But look, the most obvious change is sort of the economic impact of it,
Mhm.
which I don't want to bore everybody with. Like Boohoo, we don't get as much in residuals. Like no one wants to hear that. But it's true. It is. That's why like people in my classification, like the middle class actor sort of archetype, is harder and harder to find. You don't see it as much anymore because it eliminates the opportunity to like actually live on residual checks for a little while
Mhm.
until the next gig comes along. That just doesn't happen in the same way. From the Since I'm really more focused on show creation and movie writing and so forth these days, on that side of things, it's interesting insofar as there are more platforms now with more opportunities theoretically, but it's actually harder to get stuff sold and made now
Mhm.
because because the gatekeeping thing has always been there, right?
Yeah.
But historically, the gatekeepers were people who had sensibilities or were looking to craft a certain brand or an identity. Now it's all algorithm based.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, they really run their metrics. They know their math. Um, you know, I think from a filmmaker standpoint, my last film was fortunate to have a theatrical release, like actually be in movie theaters. But there was some discussion when we were going into pre-production, and our distributor was Universal was talking about it. There was a moment where it was like, well, maybe we'll just stream it straight to Peacock and just, like not do a theatrical release. So how your stuff is seen and consumed, I think that the edict that was recently out there was buyers, meaning streaming platforms, so forth, are looking for programming that they can just easily digestibly send out to people without having to worry too much about the message of the show. Or like prestige TV, though it still exists, it doesn't exist in the same way. Like what I mean is the edict is give us stuff that people can watch a little bit of on their phone while they're waiting in line to check out at the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah.
Give us shows that don't require us to do too much thinking and remember who that character was the Andors still exist.
Yeah.
The Better Call Sauls, the Breaking Bad still exist, but they're getting fewer and further between. So that's a big impact. Uh, the number of hurdles you have to jump is just far, far greater. A friend of mine is uh, got a what will be the biggest show on Netflix in 2026. Like, look out for it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet, but it will be. It's a very big deal show, and he's in Vancouver right now shooting it. I think this is $100 million plus project
Oof.
for 8 episodes. Like a lot, it's a big
Oh,
thing.
that's a lot.
And I think that I mean I don't have
Yeah,
any inside
ballparking.
baseball on you, but
Ballparking.
they're not they care about this show. My friend has an Oscar, so they're willing to gamble a little bit on it, right? And he's running it. He created it and he's running it, and he was trying to get it cast. And watching the process through which the casting conversations were filtered is really compelling because you know it's always mattered like who can bring in an audience, who's got a Q rating, who we care about. But it's interesting. Like you'd think certain names would be ubiquitous. Certain of these streaming platforms are like, yeah, no, that's a famous person you're pitching us. but they don't mean anything to our algorithm. Like
Mm.
this less famous person is very meaningful to our algorithm. You know what I mean? Um, like, I mean, let me just use the example of you and me. Uh, I've got this career. We're talking about it. I'm spitting my resume out. You have more people who like follow you on a regular basis and care about the content you make right now than I do. You know what I mean? And so inside of that particular ecosystem, your influence and reach and impact is greater than mine. You know what I mean? So the streaming model is very much about that. It's like Brad Pitt's cool and all, but you know who really matters to us is Joey Wackadoo from YouTube or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a moment that really stood out to me as a YouTube creator that I had been watching their content for a long time. I started watching them during the pandemic. Philosophy Tube is their like go-to, and they do pop philosophy. It's really fun, really approachable, really cool production value. And they were in Star Wars Acolyte as a side character. They had like one or two lines of speaking part. And hearing you say that, like, kind of keyed it in for me of like, oh, that's why. It's not like, oh, Philosophy Tube is like breaking into the mainstream and they've grown and they really have like more than 1 million followers on YouTube. They're a big deal on the platform. But it's like, oh no, that's why. It's they said we want this show to be watched by young people. Young people watch this creator on YouTube, and even though they've never done anything big like this before, we're gonna put him in because people will watch, say, oh, that's the YouTube creator I like. When they could have easily spent that money on an A-lister to do a lead role, or at least contributed that money towards a larger ask from an A-lister. But it makes me wonder if the echo chamber problem that I spend so much of my brain power thinking about how to get around is more than just we live in information ecosystems and that can lead us to think stupid things because we're having it reinforced over and over, and more, or at least as much as it is, this streaming platform has a new definition for what celebrity is. And if you stray beyond the walls of that streaming platform into even just another streaming platform, suddenly celebrity doesn't mean anything anymore. Like it's wild to think, oh yeah, we're gonna not take Brad Pitt in favor of a TikTok creator.
Mhm.
And then when I think about that, I'm like, no, that's actually really smart
Yep.
because that TikTok creator is going to bring in it. It's wild to think about. It's absolutely wild to think about when we know when I was growing up, to hear of a movie that Harrison Ford was in was like, oh, everyone's going to go see that movie because he doesn't do a lot of movies, and every movie he's in is just a through the ceiling banger. And you're right, I hadn't noticed it, but now that you've said it, like, yeah, actually, I don't see as much big like we cast this actor because they were going to put butts in seats. I don't see that as much anymore.
Name a movie star.
Angelina Jolie.
Okay. Name a movie star under 25.
Um,
This is my point.
yeah, this is your. I mean, I can think the Stranger Things kids. Some of the actors who were younger when Game of Thrones started. I don't even know if they were under 25
But
anymore.
none of them open a movie, right? Like there's maybe one. Uh who's just who's just a pure movie star who didn't come up through some sort of like farm system like Disney or whatever, or wasn't a pop star first or didn't have some other maybe Timothy Chalamet. Like Timothy may be the guy,
Sure, sure, yeah.
right? Apart from that, the Leos of the world, the Brad Pitts, the Johnny Depps, the hell, the Orlando Blooms, the Keanu Reeves they don't exist anymore. You know, when we were casting my last film, there were conversations around like, well, who gets us butts in seats? And it was like, I won't say names again, but we picked some names that are meaningful names, we think. A couple of them are Marvel superheroes.
Sure.
And the pushback on it was, yeah, no, such and such Marvel superhero character gets butts in seats. That actor doesn't do it, right? So, our Downey's an interesting case, and he was also a movie star before Iron Man, and then wasn't, and then was again, and so whatever. But it's like, are these? tangentially, Zendaya may be the female version.
Hmm.
But she did come up through the farm system. She came up through a Disney Channel show. You know what I mean? So I don't know who if that really if that model exists anymore, for better and worse. I mean, there's a lack of I think that there's a real lack of lionizing of celebrities because everyone feels accessible, everyone feels reachable, everyone feels identifiable. It used to be the model was if you were a TV star, people would come up and bother you at an airport
Hmm.
because they feel like they know you because you're in their living room. If you're a movie star, people are a little more reticent because you're on a screen and you feel a little more untouchable. And I think that this is like the sort of hyper adrenalized version of that. Like everyone feels accessible, everyone feels reachable, everyone feels touchable because we know them through the thing in our hand and they have their DMs open or whatever, and we can reach out and maybe they'll get back to us, maybe they won't. But there's a sense of ownership. And I think there used to be the institutional celebrity and then the homegrown celebrity. And now I think everything's like a homegrown celebrity. Everybody's like that local band that you liked first. And if they
Hmm.
wind up going on to explode, you still feel a sense of like entitlement that you were there first before everyone else caught on to the trend. Um, and I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that it is in some ways more of a meritocracy because
Yeah.
it's not dependent on, using a music analogy, it's not dependent on Clive Davis liking your record. It's dependent on whether or not you get listeners on SoundCloud, right? My wife likes to say that it used to be harder. She's not on social media. You can't find her online. There are a couple of pictures of her with me on a red carpet looking terrified that she's having her picture taken. You know what I mean? Like that's her vibe. She's a bit of a Luddite that way. But
Good for
she
her. We'd all be better off that way. We all
her
would.
she seems so much happier than I am. Um, she's the best. But her argument is, and my counter argument I will follow with, which is her argument is it used to be harder to make your voice heard, that you really had to fight if you wanted to be heard and you had to have something that you were saying or whatever.
Hmm.
My response to that is yes and no. Everybody has a microphone now, but because everybody has a microphone, you really have to figure out how to make your voice precise so that you are heard above
Yeah.
others. Um, and I think that that's maybe that's Darwinian of me, but I think there's merit in that.
There is, I'm stuck because I see it from the TikTok side. Is on the one hand, if you find something that's really good, it's typically like really good because it did have to climb above the slop heap. The other side of that coin, I think, is there's a lot of creators that I've interacted with and a lot of people who are really talented and really smart. And whatever it is, it's that last 10% of like maybe it's raw charisma or maybe it's just good lighting in a video that the algorithm grabbed, but they never cross that threshold. Even when I'm talking to them, I say, like, I could listen to you all day, and the things you say are really smart, and you say them in really engaging ways. And like, I know you, there's a friend of mine who I will also not name, not because he's famous, but because I know he would be embarrassed by it. But there's a friend of mine who has one of the best singing voices I've ever heard. And we did a garage band together when we were in our early 20s that never produced a song. We jammed out and our guitarist got high a lot and it was yeah, we were kids.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't have the mental energy at the end of the day, he does a manual labor job, he's outside a lot. And because he doesn't have the mental energy at the end of the day, he's not like setting up a booth and doing covers of Sleep Token songs or doing covers of Metallica songs. And he could. And it just it makes me wonder if everyone having a microphone means that actually way fewer people have a microphone. And I think it might also be the case on your end that if everybody has a camera, what is it to be a celebrity anymore?